Hello, welcome to Managing Anger webinar. My name is Kim Zimmerman and I am a health promotion specialist here at North Central Behavioral Health Systems. We are going to spend about an hour together today I'll be discussing ways that we can identify anger, what it might do to us, and ways that we can manage and help ourselves handle anger. If you have any questions, please feel free to use the question pane and ask them. I will be answering any and all questions at the end of the webinar. I'll save some time so I could do that. And then if you have any questions that arise after the webinar, please feel free to contact me via email and I will respond back to you as soon as possible. This webinar is being recorded, so it will be available shortly after the presentation to be viewed online at our healthdirectionsonline.org website. So, to begin our presentation, I'm going to ask a simple question. What is anger? When we think about being angry, what comes to mind? What type of feeling or image or emotion do you feel or do you see in maybe yourself or in other people? How would you define anger? We probably all have a similar definition of anger, a feeling that we get when someone does something that maybe we don't like. For example, when somebody cuts me off in traffic, I get angry. As I was researching anger, I came across this image, The Great Day of His Wrath by John Martin, and I thought this was a really good depiction of what extreme anger might be. We all know there are varying degrees of anger, and when I saw this, I thought it was kind of perfect of that intense, maybe furious or rage that someone might feel. There's a lot of stuff going on. When we get really angry, a lot of times our judgment, our decision making might be clouded. So there's a lot of clouds and destruction in this picture. I see a lot of heat and fire in the background. When I get angry, I know that I feel hot inside. My face gets hot, and I just feel like there's just a fire burning. Towards the bottom of our image, we have what appears to be maybe some bodies, and I thought this was, sometimes the debris and the stuff that we leave in our wake as we are kind of on our little anger tear. So these were some of the things that I thought kind of just depicted anger, and when I imagine anger, this is really what I see. Just a lot of stuff happening, a lot of chaos, a lot of darkness, and that kind of imminent feeling of doom. By definition, anger is an emotional state that varies in intensity from mild irritation to intense fury and rage. Anger is natural, 100% natural, normal response. It's automatic, and it can be a reaction to pain of one form or another, whether that be physical or emotional. Anger is oftentimes viewed as part of our fight or flight response to a perceived threat or pain, and this goes back to very primitive times when we used to have to basically fight or run for our lives from whatever might be occurring to us or around us. Sometimes anger is seen as a secondhand emotion. Basically, this just means that anger doesn't occur by itself. It's often accompanied by some other unpleasant feeling or emotion, maybe sadness, guilt, embarrassment. And because of this co-occurring emotional state, people see anger as a secondhand emotion, so it kind of follows along or is preceded by some other type of negative feeling. Oftentimes pain is not enough to cause anger, but there is a thought that might accompany that pain, and usually this thought is perceived as a threat. So we see ourselves as being in danger, and we're going to trigger that fight or flight response, and I'll talk about that a little bit more when I talk about how the body responds to anger. But that perceived threat is going to start this kind of emotional anger type of feeling. Sometimes anger is perceived as a substitute emotion. A lot of times when we feel angry, it is because we are trying to avoid some other feeling. A lot of times emotion is seen as a sign of weakness or vulnerability, and we don't want to be seen that way. So we would rather change our feelings to something stronger and more powerful and more intimidating, like anger. I don't want to feel sad. I'm going to hide my sadness and show it as anger. This can be a conscious or unconscious effect, and a lot of times we are trying to avoid having to deal with our real feelings. It's easier to be distracted and to cover them up than it is to deal with them. Pain is oftentimes seen as a weakness, where anger is seen as power, strength, and superiority. We're going to talk a little bit about the physiology of anger, and like all emotion, anger is experienced in our body as well as our brain. The three areas that we're going to discuss are going to be the brain's response to anger, our body's response to anger, and the flight or fight process, or fight or flight process, excuse me. Anger begins in the brain. No matter what happens to us, whether we're physically being threatened, it's a perceived threat, something stressful is occurring and it's really irritating you, whatever is happening to you, that anger is going to start in your brain. We have two almond-shaped structures within our brain, and they are called the amygdala. And this is part of the brain that is responsible for identifying threats to our well-being. And they are responsible for signaling an alarm, which causes us to take steps to protect ourselves. The amygdala is so efficient at warning us about threats that it gets us reacting to that perceived threat or real threat before our cerebral cortex, which is the brain, the part of the brain that's responsible for our judgment and thought. And so it gets us going before our cerebral cortex has the time to actually know that we're making this response. And so we oftentimes will do things kind of spontaneous or just kind of without thinking. And that's how a lot of times we get into trouble when we are being impulsive with our anger. So this happens, does it mean that, I have no way of controlling it because it all happens in the brain? Absolutely not. The important thing is to learn how to manage your anger properly so that you can allow that cerebral cortex part of your brain to get in there and help you make good decisions. We want to be able to let that override that instinctual part of our brain. The amygdala is one of the oldest parts of the brain. It's been found in the reptilian brain, and so they think that this is the part that's responsible for protecting ourselves. Being that it's in them who obviously do things to survive. They eat to survive, they kill to survive, they do whatever they need to do to protect themselves to survive. And just like them, when we get angry, when we feel threatened, we do what we need to do to survive. The body responds. Once our brain recognizes that there's a threat, it's going to send out all these chemicals and neurotransmitters and hormones and all this stuff, which is going to get our body pumped up, ready to go, and responding to that threat. There is a burst of energy released via neurotransmitters. Our muscles are going to tense up. our muscles are preparing to do something. They're preparing to protect us, or they're preparing to help us run away. Our heart rate's going to increase. In fact, our normal resting heart rate for a healthy individual is about 80 beats per minute. And when somebody becomes angry, their heart rate is going to jump up to about 180 beats per minute. So it automatically increases our heart rate. Again, we're pumping blood to those parts of our body that need to be able to do something, like our legs, for example, to run. Our blood pressure is going to increase. Normal blood pressure is about 120 over 80, and it could increase to about 220 over 130, which obviously is potentially dangerous for somebody who might have coronary artery disease. Our breathing rate increases. There's increased blood flow to our arms and legs to help us fight or run or protect or whatever. Our attention is going to narrow, so we become focused on the target or focused on the threat. You might not notice the things around you. All you can see is what's happening. What's being threatened. In quick succession, additional neurotransmitters and hormones such as adrenaline and noradrenaline are released, which are going to trigger a lasting state of arousal. And this arousal state can last up to a couple of days, depending on how intense the anger is. Can anger affect your body? Based on some of the responses that your body has, do you think that anger could actually be hazardous to our health? This next slide kind of lays out some of the damages and the dangers that can be caused by being angry. If you do not deal with it constructively, it can lead to mental and physical health problems. The nervous system is constantly working and can eventually become overexerted, leading to a weakened heart. And there is potential for kidney and liver damage as well as high cholesterol. When we have all those neurotransmitters and hormones and other chemicals floating around in our body, increasing our heart rate, increasing our blood pressure, doing all that stuff, it's not a natural state for our body to be in. And when it's constantly under that, when those things are constantly circulating through our body, it can cause a lot of damage. One study of over 13,000 subjects measured individuals with the highest level of anger, and these people had 2 times the risk of coronary artery disease and 3 times the risk of heart attack compared with those who had the lowest levels of anger. Other research that I've read, they've measured that people who have heart attacks and have strokes usually have a higher level of anger. So it definitely can be very traumatic to the body and can cause some life-threatening, issues. Some scientists think that chronic anger may be more dangerous than smoking and obesity as a factor that will contribute to early death. And one thing that is unfortunate is that we are in a world where we're surrounded by a lot of technology, which can be incredibly frustrating. The economy is really frustrating. We're working really hard and we're doing lots of stuff, and maybe we're not seeing the results that we would like. And so our anger levels in general are potentially elevated, increasing the risk that more of us are going to get sick, which just adds to more stress, which can cause more anger. So we kind of have this vicious cycle going, and it's going to be hard for us to avoid. So we're going to talk a little bit later about ways that we can maybe avoid those issues and potentially be able to handle them and get rid of them. The fight or flight response. When we are being threatened, this is a response that our body goes through. We either prepare to protect ourselves and fight back, or we prepare to run away. In my case, I would probably run away. It is an evolutionary response to stressful situations. Every person goes through this fight or flight response, but in different degrees. Some people might quickly jump to the fight stage. Some people might quickly jump to the flight stage. It might take some people a lot longer to get to that anger level before they're prepared to do either. How can we tell when people are angry? How do you know when you're angry? Or when your friends are angry, or your parents, or your children? What are some physical signs, emotional signs, that people are angry? A lot of times people are going to have tense muscles or tight muscles. They might have a clenched jaw, sweaty palms, racing heart, fast breathing. A lot of times you can see anger visibly in somebody's face. So their face is going to be red. You might see that their jaw, they're biting down, their jaw is clenched. Maybe they're starting to sweat a little bit. Trembling or feeling shaky is a warning sign, as well as feeling warm and flushed. Remember, blood is starting to pump and surge through our limbs, our legs, and our arms, and it's moving towards the skin, preparing us to do whatever we need to do, and so that increased blood flow is going to cause the skin to feel flushed, or feel warm and be flushed. Some people would get an upset stomach. They might get a loud or mean voice. They might become sarcastic. Their emotions, their attitude, their personalities might change for the moment or maybe long term. Somebody who's been under chronic stress could potentially, be going through personality changing situations, and that's one way to know that, hey, maybe this person needs help, or I need help because this, I'm not behaving the way that I normally do. This isn't how I normally respond in a situation like this. So these are some warning signs. Obviously, there are just a few here. People are going to react differently, and they're going to respond differently, and they're going to have different warning signs. Some people might eat or they don't eat. Some people don't talk. Lots of different stuff. Everybody's going to be different. So think about when you get angry, what are some things that you notice about yourself that might be good clues the next time you get angry, when you say, oh, well, when I get angry, I notice that I always clench my fists. Then the next time you see yourself or feel yourself clenching your fists, you can be like, oh, well, apparently I'm angry. Not that we're that naive about how we feel, but a lot of times it's those little things that maybe we don't recognize all the time that can really, once we start recognizing them as a sign or a symptom, they can really help us to catch maybe anger or stress or whatever it might be in the beginning stages. We're going to talk a little bit about controlling our anger. The first way to even begin to control your anger is to know your anger triggers. So what causes you to be angry? We're going to learn how to express our anger. How can we calmly get rid of it, or how can we calmly get it out of us? And we're going to talk about some tools that we can use, some ways that we can deal with our anger. Uncontrolled or poorly handled anger can cause problems with friends and family, problems at work or school, legal and financial troubles, poor decision making, again, because we're not allowing the cortex of our brain we're not giving it time to make those good decisions. We're going strictly off of impulse from those amygdala perceived threat kind of reactions. It's going to cause low self-esteem. If we're making bad decisions, we're not going to feel very good about ourselves. It might lead to alcohol or other drug problems, and it could lead to physical and mental health problems. Uncontrolled anger can also lead to aggression, and aggression is going to be, by definition, intention of harm. So if we're purposely trying to hurt somebody, we are being aggressive. Ways that people are aggressive are verbally attacking or physically abusing somebody, either throwing or breaking things, yelling, hitting, or shoving someone. Forms of abuse such as physical, verbal, or sexual, and other types of criminal behavior such as destruction of property, murder, or other violent crimes. So if we don't handle our anger appropriately, it can manifest itself into aggression, which adds a whole host of other problems, and those problems could potentially be criminal. I don't want you guys to forget that Anger is a natural emotional reaction. I've said a lot of negative things about anger, but it's important to know that it's okay to be angry. I mean, it's the way we feel. Don't deny it. You need to take responsibility for your feelings, and it's okay to feel angry. In fact, sometimes anger can even be healthy. If it stays anger and doesn't turn to aggression, when you take responsibility for your feelings, when you make it about the issues and not about personalities. So if you're disagreeing with somebody, are you disagreeing because of that issue, or are you mad at that person because you just don't like them? Like, making it about the issues and not personalities is healthy. Anger can be healthy when it lasts a short time and doesn't grow into long-term resentment or grudges. And anger can be healthy when you can talk to those you are angry with without losing control. Sometimes this might mean you have to take a moment and calm down, and come back and maybe talk to them an hour later or the next day or the next week. But do not ever talk to somebody when you're all full of anger and rage and emotion. You need to take some time to cool down. Anger can work for you instead of against you. It can help you overcome problems. It can help you reach goals. Sometimes anger can be motivation. When somebody tells you that you can't do something or that you're not doing it good enough, a lot of times you can turn that anger and frustration you might feel into something positive, and it might be a motivational tool and help you reach your goals or overcome some type of problem. Anger can help you stay healthy. If you can manage your anger and learn to control it, it can help you feel better about yourself. It might help you handle emergencies and be able to protect yourself. Again, anger sometimes comes from that perceived threat. And, if we are prepared and we're ready to do whatever we need to do in order to protect ourselves, that can be definitely helpful. Anger can help us communicate with others, as long as it's positive communication. So the first step in controlling our anger is to recognize anger. What makes you angry? The last time you were angry, what were you really angry about? Was it, that one thing that triggered it? Was it the fact that you came home and the dog tracked mud in the house? Or maybe was it that you had a stressful day, the kids are, yelling at you because they're hungry, and whatever else is going on in your life? Was it the dog tracking mud in, or was it the combination of all those things, or the timing of all those things? So what really makes you angry? What is that one cause? Some anger triggers. We don't all have the same thing that's going to make us angry. What makes me angry might not make you angry. I tend to be a very impatient driver, so that'll bug me sometimes. But, in other places, if I was a passenger, it might not make me so angry. So some triggers, you need to find out what's going to make you angry, and that's the first step in helping you control and manage your anger. Some people get angry, because of all the stress that they're under, the frustration, fear, annoyances, disappointments, insults and jealousy, lies, rudeness. Sometimes we don't like losing or wasting time. It might be one of these things. It might be a combination of these things. It might be a compounding of all these things. Maybe a little bit of stress is fine, but once you get under a whole bunch of stress and stress and stress and stress, one more piece of paper, one more, extra duty, one more whatever, can just be, that straw that breaks the camel's back, and now we have this big, big, huge problem. And keep in mind that these are just a short list. It can be hundreds of other different things. Think about what it is that really makes you angry. Is it somebody being unfair and unjust? What is the cause of your anger? When you get angry, this is a way that we're going to kind of check our anger and keep our anger in control. We need to ask ourselves, is the level of anger and your reaction to it to that situation? Are they proportional to what's happening? The dog tracking mud in. Really, is that a big deal? No. Are you annoyed that you have to now clean up after the dog? Yes. If you didn't have all those other things going on that day at work, would you really have snapped and exploded all over? Probably not. Okay, so are your reactions and your level of anger proportional to the cause? When you get angry, ask yourself, am I directing my anger at an innocent person? Do my kids or do my parents or do my coworkers deserve to be yelled at for whatever reason? Was it their fault? Who are you taking your anger out on? Am I taking something personally? A lot of times, when people cut me off in traffic, I get angry. They don't even know who I am, but I feel offended that they think that their whatever is more important than my whatever. Clearly, they don't even know who I am, so I'm pretty sure that it's not personal. They're just trying to do whatever they're trying to do, but I seem to be taking it personally, and I get angry about that. So check yourself, ask yourself, is this really happening? Are they really intending to harm me? Probably not. Is this how you usually respond in a similar situation? Would you flip out on somebody on a normal day, or was it because you had all this stuff going on? How would you normally respond to that situation? And if this particular incident is elevated, then maybe you need to reevaluate some things. And then you can also ask yourself, am I trying to take charge with your anger? Are you trying to be in control? Are you throwing your weight around? Are you using anger as a tool to be in control and to be in charge? When we get angry, sometimes we like to misbehave. And some reactions that won't help are not letting go. If you cannot drop the situation, you keep going on and on and on about whatever it is, you're never going to get over it. You're not going to allow other people to get over it. You're just going to keep bringing it up, which is going to cause you to become angry more often or every day or even more angry maybe. If you keep all your anger inside, keep it bottled up, it becomes like a shaken soda can. You shake it and shake it and shake it. All that carbonation in there builds up, and that pressure builds up, and eventually, you go to pop that top, and we have this great big huge explosion. Blaming. If you blame somebody, that's definitely not going to help. First of all, it could cause other problems. If you're blaming somebody, they're going to get mad. You're going to have a fight or an argument. Bad things are going to happen. But also by blaming other people, you're not learning how to take responsibility for your feelings. Okay? It might not necessarily be their fault that you feel that way. They can't control how you feel. Maybe they did something to you, but it's not their fault you feel that way. My friend always says, I can't help how you feel. And I think that's absolute truth. Blaming somebody isn't going to help you feel better. You need to learn to take responsibility for your feelings and deal with them accordingly. And then responding to anger with anger. If somebody is angry, you need to be the calmer person. Yelling back at them isn't going to solve the problem. We're going to escalate into something maybe more violent. We're going to cause a scene. We're going to have bigger issues. Things are not going to get settled down and taken care of. Using alcohol or other drugs is not going to make it easier. In fact, it's going to make it harder to manage your anger. Alcohol and other drugs might increase. They tend to elevate whatever particular mood you're in. If you're, some, I suppose. If you're happy, we drink a little bit of alcohol, that might make us feel a little bit more happy. If we're angry and we start to drink, that's going to make me feel more angry. And using other drugs, they also are just going to enhance that mood that we happen to be in, whether it's good or bad. And so that could potentially be dangerous because we end up into a worse situation than we were originally in. Also, when we are using alcohol and drugs, we are not learning how to manage and cope with our feelings. It's really important that we learn how to handle the way we feel in an appropriate, positive, and healthy manner. Using drugs and alcohol to cover them up are not going to make them go away. It's Sometimes we use alcohol and drugs as an excuse for our violent behavior or for our angry feelings. And again, that's a complete lie. You feel the way you feel. You need to take ownership of those feelings and deal with them accordingly. There are treatment programs available for people who do use alcohol or other drugs to manage their anger or to hide other feelings, or for whatever reason you might be using drugs or alcohol. And there is help available. So how can we get back in control? I'm angry right now. I need to get back in control. I don't want to cause any more problems. I don't want to be angry anymore. What can I do in the middle of my angry fit? First thing I need to do is stop. I just need to stop. Try to relax, whether that be taking deep breaths, counting to 10, taking a walk, whatever. I just need to stop what I'm doing, calm down. If I have to, leave. If I can't calm down well enough to talk about this or to get over it or to finish my work, whatever the situation is, maybe I need to leave. Maybe I need to go on a lunch break or a smoke break or a short walk around the block, okay? And then I can return when I'm calm, and we can potentially talk out the problem. Whatever we were fighting about, whatever I was angry about, maybe my computer was freezing up on me and I couldn't get to my work. Return when I'm calm and I'm ready to try again. We need to find healthy ways to express our anger. Remembering to calm down, naming the problem. Again, we need to identify what's causing my anger. Using I statements. This goes back to the blaming issue. We want to use I statements. I feel angry because whatever. I'm frustrated because my computer keeps freezing up and it won't let me into my email and I have to check my email. I feel angry when you tell me you're coming at 6 o'clock, but you show up at 6:30. I feel angry, and then why? That's how we use an I statement. That takes the blame out, the judgment out of that situation, and it helps you take responsibility for the way you're feeling. Identify solutions. That can be something that you do on your own. We'll talk in a couple of minutes about, working out solutions with whoever you might be upset with or angry with. But figuring out ways that we can solve our problem and maybe, hopefully, not get angry or as angry in the future. And then to get help if we need it. There are 3 ways that we can express our anger. So when I say express anger, I mean literally expressing our anger. How can we show people that we're angry? The first way is anger in. The second way is anger out. And the third way is anger control. Anger in is pretty simple. It means keeping your anger inside, suppressing. That bottled up, not talking to anybody about how you're feeling, maybe not even showing your anger to people. Usually anger is going to leak out in an unproductive, passive-aggressive manner. And if we keep it all bottled up inside, we can lead to health problems. Okay, remember all those neurotransmitters and hormones and chemicals are floating through our body, increasing our heart rate, increasing our blood pressure, elevating our arousal level. And if we're not handling it in an appropriate way, it can cause health problems. Not to mention we can have that bottled up can of soda feeling, and we might take our anger out on an innocent person, somebody who doesn't deserve it, doesn't even maybe know what the heck is going on. We can convert this anger in energy to something useful and productive. such as exercise. So if you are one of those people who does keep your anger inside, who does keep it all bottled up, a healthy way to express your anger by keeping it in is to use that energy for something good. Garden or exercise, or maybe you journal, or whatever you like to do for fun. But using that energy in a positive way, not letting it just sit there. Anger out means that you're expressing your anger outward in ways that may include physical or verbal assault. So instead of holding in all my anger, now I'm just yelling at everybody around me, or I'm throwing things, or I'm pushing people. A lot of times this can develop develop into aggression, and it can lead to physical, emotional, and social problems. Think about if you're constantly being mean to people, calling people names, physically abusing them. Nobody's going to want to be with you, whether it's your kids, your husband, your wife, or your friends. So there is a large possibility that it's going to lead to some type of emotional and or social problem. Anger control is the third way that we can express our anger, and it's probably going to be the most positive and healthy way. Anger control means that we're going to deal with our anger in an appropriate manner. We're going to be calming and relaxing. We might need to take a few minutes or a few seconds to calm down, assess the situation, and talk out or fix the problem. So whoever we are frustrated with, or whatever we are frustrated at, if we take a few moments and try to figure out what the problem was and how we can fix it, that's going to be part of anger control and a good way to express it. Some tools that we can use. These are just some suggestions or some things that you can do, or you can share with somebody for when anger is occurring, that can maybe help you calm down and relax. Obviously, talking to the person is going to be a very positive thing. We can talk about the situation, and this might possibly, obviously, hopefully, it's going to resolve our current conflict, but it potentially could help us to avoid any future conflicts. If I know that you get angry because I'm always late, then I'm going to try better to be on time, or I'm going to tell you a later time so that I can actually be early. But talking to the person can help you kind of figure out, what's going on and how we can fix it and avoid it in the future. Talking to somebody else. So maybe, you're talking to a third party. This may help you with the current situation, or this person could just be a good support system for you, somebody who's going to be there to listen. Maybe they have some suggestions and maybe they don't, but they're just somebody that you can lean on for help. Exercising, reading, watching TV, doing yard work, building something, taking a break, taking a walk, counting to 10. These are just different ways that you can burn energy or take your mind off of a situation. Obviously, relaxing, that's something that we want to do, but what are some ways that we like to relax? Maybe you like to relax by getting a massage or taking a bubble bath, or painting or listening to music, whatever helps you to relax. Driving in the car. Know what is going to help you feel better fastest, and that's going to be one of those tools that you're going to want to keep at the top of your list. Sometimes changing the way you think can actually help avoid or reduce your risk of being angry. Using terms like always and never are very negative, and there usually is no solution to that. So don't say always or never, you never let me do this, or you're always late, or something like that. By using those concrete terms, there's no way to find a solution. So maybe change your thinking from always and never. Use other words. Try not to be so late all the time, or, because I'm sure that that person's not always late, or that you never get to do anything. So just use different language. Change the way you're thinking. For example, when I go up to Chicago, I don't, like Chicago traffic very much. Not that I'm afraid to drive in it, but just because it just makes me angry because people are so rude. So I kind of change the way I think. I give myself a lot of time to get up there so that I don't feel like I'm rushing, so that I get stopped in traffic. That's fine. I prepare myself. I know that, hey, I'm driving into the city. People are going to be, driving like they drive, and I'm going to be prepared for it. So now when I go into the city, I'm less likely to be angry because I just know what to expect, and I change the way I think about it. Using I statements, taking deep breaths, and using guided imagery. Deep breathing has actually been shown to reduce anger in individuals. I don't know if it's because there's more oxygen getting to the brain, or if it's because we're just taking that time that our cerebral cortex needs in order to catch up with that amygdala and that impulsive response. But research is showing that actually does reduce, people's level of anger. So taking deep breaths. And then guided imagery, I'm going to talk about guided imagery in just a second. But these are just some tools that we can use, some ways that maybe you can help yourself deal with any type of anger situation. So deep breathing, this slide is in here just to kind of help us remember to take a couple of deep breaths. Deep breathing for a way to actually resolve anger. You would just need to take, a couple of deep breaths. You don't have to make it really obvious. You don't have to, take a walk anywhere. Just a big deep breath in, fill your lungs full of air, hold it for half a second, and then a nice controlled exhale. Okay? Another deep breath in, and maybe your whole breath takes you 5 seconds, and you can figure out what's going to work better for you. I'm not going to make anybody, hold their breath or do anything. Just take some deep breaths. It does have a very calming effect to it, and a very rejuvenating and refreshing effect. Guided imagery. A lot of times people will use guided imagery for maybe meditation or some type of actual relaxation session. But you can take short little trips of a guided imagery session, sitting at your desk, maybe sitting in traffic, where traffic's actually stopped. I wouldn't recommend it as you're driving. But just taking a few minutes or a few seconds even, closing your eyes and imagining some place that's very comfortable and very safe and very calming for you. Maybe it's a beach or your favorite spot at home or whatever it might be. But you're just going to imagine yourself in some safe, comfortable, calming place. Think about the sights and the sounds and the smells. You're just going to kind of go on a mini vacation and just help yourself relax and calm down. It doesn't have to be very long. It can be seconds. It can be a couple minutes. If you're lucky enough to actually have a whole lot of time, maybe it is a 20-minute vacation. What can we do? We live in a world full of tons of people. What can we do when other people get angry? How are we going to deal with someone else's anger? First thing we need to do is keep ourselves calm. We don't want to get all worked up. Remember, we shouldn't handle anger with anger. So if somebody's angry and yelling, it's not appropriate and not going to be very helpful for us to get angry. Don't take it personally. Okay? Remember that person's angry about whatever they're angry about. And it's their emotion, their feeling. Don't take it personally. Be helpful. Listen to them. If they want to talk about it, if they want to scream about it, listen to them, but help them calm down. Okay? Maybe ask them to sit down. Maybe help them take a couple of deep breaths. Try to get them to calm down. Think of solutions together. What are some things that, if there is something going on between the two of you, what are some things that both of you can do to help the situation. Maybe you're just helping a friend, you're being that supporter. What are some solutions that they can do to help the situation? How can we avoid getting angry at each other? Or how can I avoid getting angry at my boss or at the computer or whatever in the future? What are some solutions that we can come up with? And another way to deal with someone else's anger is not to take chances. Remember, this person might be angry for whatever reason, and we all have different levels of anger. So we want to make sure that we keep ourselves safe. We don't want to get hurt. We don't want to get in a fight. If you don't know the person very well, or even maybe if you do, it might be wise to keep your distance and keep a nice neutral stance. Don't be too intimidating or aggressive. If they sit down, you should sit down, and just keep yourself safe. Sometimes people have a hard time managing and controlling their anger, and asking for help is a sign of strength, not weakness. It's okay to go to a counselor, to talk to a teacher, to talk to a friend, to talk to somebody about how you're feeling. There's no shame in it, and there are lots of places that you can go. North Central Behavioral Health Systems has some therapists who can help you with anger. I know several people who have actually come to the anger programs through North Central, and it has helped them a lot. Your healthcare provider, you can talk to your doctor about how you're feeling, and they might be able to refer you or help you out. Counselors or family therapists, there are hotlines, employee assistance programs. If your workplace has one of these, they're very helpful and handy. Feel free to access your EAP and try to find out some ways that they can help you maybe get some help. And speaking to your religious leaders, your faith or spirit guides can definitely be very helpful. Hopefully you have enough knowledge and that I've given you some skills to practice so that you can handle your anger in a healthy and positive way. Remember, through all of this, that anger is a natural, normal feeling that we have. And we want to be able to own our anger, not allow it to control and to own us. I want to thank you for spending your evening with me, and if you have any questions, please feel free to answer them or ask them now in the question pane. If you don't want to ask them now, you're more than welcome to email me at thecommunications@ncbhs.org. For attending more webinars, you can check on the healthdirectionsonline.org website. And if you have any information or if you need any information about North Central Health Directions, please email the healthdirections@ncbhs.org. I'd like to thank you again for taking the time to be with me.